In my 13 years here, I've never had a classroom teacher tell me that a student doesn't belong in their classroom. It's more, what can I do to help this student be successful in my classroom, which is a much better way of phrasing it. It's a positive way of looking
Right,
at it versus
right.
I've been places where it's this student doesn't belong here, get them out of my room. We don't have that. There's frustrations,
Right,
but
yeah, of course.
all students can be frustrating from time to time, but our teachers really embrace our students with disabilities and they approach it from the stance of this student seems to be struggling in my classroom. What can I do to make this better for them? Which is such a great thing to hear coming from gen ed teachers on a regular basis.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my guest today is Lon Smith. Lon is the Director of Special Education Services at Milan Area Schools in Milan, Michigan, which is just not too far south of Ann Arbor, correct?
Correct.
Thanks, Lon, for being here today.
Happy to be here.
So, Lon, tell us a little bit about your school at Milan and a little bit about your role there.
Sure. So Milan is a predominantly rural community. We have four buildings, two elementaries, a middle school and a high school. Our enrollment is right around 1,900 students total. I have a little over 300 students with IEPs that I help manage and support services for. As a district, as far as special education goes, we run a full inclusion model for education. And so the majority of our students with disabilities spend most of their day in gen ed classrooms with their non-disabled peers. We support them through accommodations in the classroom. We have a great deal of amazing paraprofessionals that are in those classrooms with students supporting them as well. My special ed teachers or my teacher consultants do a great job of collaborating with classroom teachers, working with the parapros, making sure all of those supports and services that they need can be provided in that gen ed setting to the greatest extent possible. And we've seen a lot of really, really good results out of that. And probably one of the biggest areas that we see is we have significantly less amounts of mistreatment of our students with disabilities. These students spend their whole lives in education together. And so it definitely shows in the level of acceptance that our students with disabilities have. I mean, we're like every public educator, every school district in the country. There are still issues that
Oh,
have to
yeah,
be dealt with, and you got to still do things.
for sure.
But in general, the students are welcomed. They're included. We have some peer-to-peer programs running at our high school and at our middle school that really do a great job of including those students and incorporating those relationships that maybe wouldn't naturally happen without our help, but it provides a great opportunity for all of our students to learn and grow.
I love that. I love that so much. I love that for your gen ed kids, not just your special education students. I love it for your gen ed kids because boy, that is it's so important. It's so kudos to you guys because that's not an easy. How long have you been? Has it been since the beginning or how did it come about to be?
So we've been running a full inclusion model for over 20 years. So even before I got here, we started our peer-to-peer program about, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years ago at the high school. And then started it out through a partnership with Special Olympics and tried to coordinate that and make it around sports is probably
Yeah.
too narrow of a term, but different types of activities. I mean, between shooting hoops with kids, going out and throwing a football around, playing wiffle ball, bocce ball, just whatever it was. And it just sort of has morphed from there to where now at our high school, it is a class that is a leadership class that students can sign up for as an elective. And that class is a combination of our students with disabilities and then their peers. We call it Big Red Buddies, and we're the Milan Big Reds. And so
Okay.
uh,
Cool.
the students get matched up with buddies and they, every single day they're in class together and they're working out all kinds of different skills and things like that. But a big part of it is sort of just that let's go hang out and let's go shoot hoops in the gym. Let's, constantly right outside my office in the little grassy area. I'll leave the building, come back, and there's kids throwing a football. There's kids, throwing, pitching to each other, playing wiffle ball. It's inclusion week this week for us. And so last week, students did a lot of chalk art on the sidewalk so that
Oh, fun.
everybody walking around the building knew it was inclusion week. And so it's just a lot of different activities to just continue to engage our students together. And it's super, super fun for me to walk down the hallways and have one of our students with disabilities say hi to 50 kids as they're navigating from one class to the next. And every single student yells back at them hi and high fives them and asks them how their day is going. And just that level of acceptance is amazing.
That's fantastic. And you're making lifelong friendships. You are fostering lifelong friendships. That's so great. So great. I love it. I love it. As someone who's been in special education for 31 years and as a speech therapist, and we teach pragmatics, right? And it's just like, man, you're just doing it every day. That is so and you cannot as a therapist create that. We try really hard, but man, that is so amazing. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Congratulations. I love it. And I'm sure your families do as well. And the kids, great. So great.
Yeah, kids really enjoy it. We've heard tons of positive feedback from parents who really appreciate that. We've got, parents who are like, wait a minute, these other kids are inviting my kid to come to the homecoming dance with it. Like, are they being set up? Is there something going on? And and it's like, nope, they're good friends. They're hanging out every day. They just want them to come on Saturday night to the homecoming dance or prom last week or whatever it is,
God, that's
they
right.
want
Prom
them to come
season.
and be engaged in those other social activities. So, it really is a really nice benefit.
That's fantastic. It's kudos, kudos. That's great. So tell me a little bit about what you would consider. I mean, because that's huge, and it's such a part of your culture. But what are some of the other challenges that you think that you face as a special education director? I'm going to turn it just a tiny bit.
Sure. Right now, I think from the other directors and administrators and special ed I speak to, it's kind of a double-headed issue of staffing. I mean, that's going to
Yeah.
be a big one, making sure that we're able to staff, get folks to stay in the field. This is very challenging work that we do. And so there's a lot of different factors that have folks maybe choose to not stay in the field. And at the same time, in the last few years, I've hired back some folks that are retirees who were like, I stepped away and I missed it. I wanted to come back. I've hired folks that are, maybe a second career, have gone down a path other than education and then decided, nope, I want to jump into the education field. And so that's, makes me feel confident that we will be able to continue to do the work moving forward. But it's still that challenge of being able to support those staff, especially the folks that are new into it, because I personally don't want them to leave the field and walk away saying I wasn't supported. I
Right.
wasn't getting what I needed. And as an administrator, like that's kind of like the worst thing that can be said. I'm far from perfect. I'm sure I've failed in areas at times, but I want to create a system that supports our staff, supports our teachers, and that's our special ed teachers and our gen ed teachers.
Yeah.
When we run a model like we do, the classroom teacher has to know how to adapt. We're not that kid blurted out. Now they're going to go down the hallway somewhere else and deal with it. We want them to be able to stay in the classroom. We want teachers to be able to support them on that front line. That takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes a mindset.
Mhm.
We embrace it as a full inclusion. My 13 years here, I've never had a classroom teacher tell me that a student doesn't belong in their classroom. It's more, what can I do to help this student be successful in my classroom, which is a much better way of phrasing it. It's a positive way of looking
Right.
at it versus
Right.
I've been places where it's this student doesn't belong here, get them out of my room. And we don't have that. There's frustrations.
Right. Yeah, of course.
All students can be frustrating from time to time, but our teachers really embrace our students with disabilities and they approach it from the stance of this student seems to be struggling in my classroom. What can I do to make this better for them? Which is such a great thing to hear coming from gen ed teachers on a regular basis.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Because it shows ownership. Right?
Yeah.
Yep, they own their education for those kids, and that's great. So let's say you're talking to an administrator who's never done this before. Walk us through the steps that you would say, what do you got to do? How do you make this successful? What kinds of things can I do to support my team so that we can do some of this? And that way our listeners kind of will get an idea of what you guys have done. I know you didn't start it, but you're in the thick of it and you have been for 13 years. So I'd love to hear the recommendations or guidelines or whatever you would your wisdom. We want your wisdom. I'm trying to pull your wisdom out.
Sure. And I do get asked this quite often from other administrators who are trying to reduce the amount of time students are spending in resource rooms or self-contained classrooms or out of that gen ed setting. The first thing I talk about is it takes an appropriate level of staffing. It's That's hard because staffing is people, people are money, training, all those things. And I understand those dynamics are challenging to work through, but the benefits for the students, in my opinion, far outweigh the cost. And so it takes an appropriate level of staffing, and it starts with our special ed teachers. It's getting them the training for how do I support a student who's spending the majority of their day not in my classroom. And our teacher prep programs, even in special education, do a lot of time about classroom management, which is vital and important. And they talk about how to instruct and teach lessons and write lesson plans, all vital and important things that special education teachers need to know how to do, just like gen ed teachers. But there's a difference when you come into my system or you come into a full inclusion system and you're now supporting those students, but you don't control the environment that they're sitting in. A colleague controls that environment. And like, what do I do when I see an issue? What do I do when I need the classroom teacher to make an adjustment to the way they're teaching or the way they've structured their class to help my students with disabilities be successful? And when I'm talking to the administrators, I charge them with that. That's your job, building administrator, special ed director, whatever your role is. That's your job to help those two professionals bridge that gap. It's your job to create an environment where they're colleagues. It's not, oh, you're a guest in my room or your students are guests in my room. It's nope, the gen ed teachers need to embrace. These are my students. And then the special ed teacher goes, yep, and they're my students, or this group are my students. And so when we're talking about them, let's talk about our student
Right.
or students and how do we support them there. So that part can take a minute. That's
Mhm.
that's not something that you can necessarily just from the top mandate. I've talked with some districts neighboring who the superintendent has decided for whatever reason we're improving inclusion, we're getting our kids out of resource rooms more, which is all great. And it's announced at the August PD that we no longer have resource rooms. Go. And it's like,
Yeah. Think or swim?
you're
Oh
letting it
my
go.
goodness. Yeah.
You didn't put the framework in place for that to be successful.
Mhm.
Yes, I inherited this system, but to keep it and maintain it has to be a collaborative effort. I have to work closely with building principals. So when they have a concern, when a student isn't being successful in the gen ed environment, they know they can come to me to problem solve. And it's not come to me and get rid of the student or go find a other place for the student. It's we have a problem. How do we problem solve that student? So to maintain it, it takes a lot of resources. It takes shifting resources. It takes shifting your priorities. But we're doing nothing magical here that no other district can do. We are just implementing a philosophy or an idea of having our students more included with their gen ed peers and then putting the resources in place to support them so they can be successful.
So do your special education teachers have a classroom? I mean, are the kids coming to them for like resource services just for like a period and then going, or how does that piece work? I'm just wondering about that.
Yeah. So they all have a space.
Okay.
Every
Got it
building is
right.
different. Some have classroom and a full classroom of space, and some have offices. So
Hmm.
that's just more the dynamic of what was available in the room or in that building, or what was their comfort level. And it's different everywhere. I have a whole hallway of classrooms at the high school that anyone could be able to use. But some of my high school teachers prefer having an office as their home space. And they all have a little table and a place to work with kids, and there's other spaces they can work with students. As far as how they receive their services, it looks a little different at every level. At the elementary, we're still really working on improving students' ability to sustain in the classroom because there's some students that sitting in a classroom, no matter how engaging and awesome and inclusive it is, that's a really long time to sit with 30 other students with 30 other voices going on.
That sensory and yeah, yeah.
Oh, so much sensory integration. So all of our buildings have like a motor sensory room, a place where when students need that break, they can go down to that break. There's usually a paraprofessional or somebody else that goes with them. Again, at the elementary, all of the special ed teachers have a classroom or a space. And so they'll schedule times, typically daily, where they'll pull the kids out for 15, 20 minutes, work on a specific area, usually tied to their IEP goals or an
Right.
area of need. And then they're back in class. So coming from experience as a speech pathologist, I would say that model of how services like that a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, a social worker might provide is very similar to how my special ed teachers provide the academic support while maintaining the students being in the classroom. The big difference as a speech pathologist is my special ed teachers don't have 60 kids on their caseloads, so they have more time in their day
60,
to go spend
70,
time in class.
80.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I know. I was
know.
trying to be
I
nice
know.
with 60, but
You were being nice with 60.
yeah.
Yeah, it really
But because
depends.
of that,
Yeah.
yeah, because of that, they're able to also then go into the classroom and provide help and support in there. And some of that is more working with the classroom or the teacher, like, hey, how are things structured? How are they doing? And then they can collaborate, problem solve.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's funny when you said the spaces. I was in the Harry Potter closet under the stairs
Yep.
in high school. It was literally under the stairs in a high school. So you can imagine between classes, yeah, it was noisy,
Yep.
but I actually had windows, so I was grateful for the windows, but it was cold. It was Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but, you do what you have to do, and I wasn't there all the time because it was high school, so, I would be there 1 or 2 days a week and see my kids, and so but yeah, that's pretty funny. It's like you just and, every district is different in how they set it up, and for us as therapists, we just go, "Yeah, we get it. We totally get it," so okay, well, I have one other question for you because I asked this question of every guest. Missed only one, and I'm gonna go to it in my notes because I'm like, I wanna make sure I get it right. If you could miraculously solve one challenge in your school, what would you wanna solve?
That's a really tough question. I think right now, historically, it has always been harder for us to support behavioral needs versus academic needs.
My hand.
So what I mean by that when I say that is when a student struggles to read, a student struggles to write, a student struggles to do math, it's very natural for anyone in education to go, okay, I can help there. I can do this. That's clear. When they struggle with behavior or behaving in class or how to self-regulate or any of those things, we're better than we were, but historically it's always, oh, it's the student has a problem.
Right.
And we used to, and we still do to a certain extent, but discipline, we have to consequence them for that, and that will teach them how to behave. And so to that point of one thing to fix, it's behavior is different than it was. And I know I'm in the camp of, I still keep saying since the pandemic, and I hope and long for the day that we can not say that
Right.
phrase,
Right. Yeah.
but it had a traumatic impact on the children.
Yes, it did.
And we're seeing it. And to me, one of the bigger ones recently is seeing it in our kids that were born during the pandemic or were infants during the pandemic.
The littles, yeah.
And it's super easy to sit and go, well, but they were babies. How did the pandemic impact them? We were real locked down hard for about a year, and then things loosened up. And while there's still caution, things went semi back to normal after a year ish. How does that have an impact? And it's when we're getting kids into kindergarten and when we talk to them and talk to the families, it's simple things like we have 5 and 6-year-olds that have never gone to a grocery store because before the pandemic, it was a novelty to have groceries delivered, but very few people actually did it. Then we were forced to do it because it was the only way you could get it.
Right.
And then it became a convenience. And
Right.
I get it. When my children were little, I and my wife would have loved to not have to take 3 small children around a grocery store for an hour to buy
I had
groceries.
at each one hanging on to a corner of the
Yeah,
chart. You have to hold on. You cannot hold
yeah.
you cannot let go. Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
great that would have been if that existed 20 years ago when my kids were little. But we don't think of that convenience had an impact. There are things, social cues. Yeah, nobody likes yelling at their children or having to keep them in line or hold on to the card, but there's things that they learn from that, that when you've removed some of that, and then you put them in a setting where we say, "Sit down, look forward, keep your hands to yourself, stay in your square."
And not be on your device.
They have no clue what we're like, these are concepts that some of these students don't know. And so we have to adjust. The fix, it's a very long-winded answer to your
No, I
very
get it.
simple question, but
It's you're the third person that's brought this up. So it's not unique to you. There's a woman in let me see if I can what was her name? Because Elisa Olin, she goes by Allie, and she's at because it's a podcast that we have coming up. And she is an occupational therapist who is also a director of student support services. And she has this program called Ready, Set, Grow because she was seeing that very same thing with her K3s, her pre-Ks and her K3s. And so she developed this program. And I'm putting it out there and telling you because, oh my goodness, it is a repeating theme that I'm hearing. I was not aware. I honestly, before I started doing these podcasts, that what a big problem this is. But she is having some really amazing success. And she said, share, let people know, what we're doing because, and she's working on the sensory and she's an OT, the motor and the sensory. And now she said she's even having some of the speech side of it, because these kids, they don't know it's just crazy. And there's splinter skills and there's so many things. And we don't want these kids on IEPs. You don't want these kids on IEPs. And that's what MTSS and RTI is all about, right? So let's figure out a way to help these children, right? And so I'm impressed with her. She's amazing. She's done some really cool stuff. So I will make a connection for you. I told you she made the mistake of telling me that I could connect other people to her, and I already have done one. So I will definitely make the connection again because it's working for them. They are seeing some really amazing changes in the behaviors of their kids. And I don't know if it'll fit with what you guys are doing, but I think it might. So I would love to make that connection. That's part of what this is all about. We want to work together and help each other and be successful. So I have a feeling she's going to get a lot of referrals from me, but
oh, that's great.
it's a problem that is out there, and I'm excited for hers to go out there to be the podcast because I'm sure she's probably gonna get flooded again when the podcast goes live for her because she was like number 15. So we're going live a week from Monday. All of our first 3 will be launched, and I'm super excited about that. But it's just one of those things where it's like I've asked this question and people are seeing this problem with our littles, and it's something that we've never had to deal with before, and a solution. This is somebody who's come up with a solution, so and she's willing to share it, so I'm happy to make that connection for you guys because it's important. It's important, so poor thing, I'm probably gonna overwhelm her by bringing it up again in the middle of a show, but it's good. That's what we do as human beings and as collaborators and as educators is we help each other, and that's the point of the podcast is just to bring out you're doing some amazing things with inclusion, and I'm sure when this one goes live, you're gonna have people reaching out to you, and that's okay because, but we're putting it out there and we're doing it because, it matters. There's too many people are getting beat up in education, and you guys are out there day in and day out and doing hard work. So kudos to you guys for doing it. So, and thank you for answering that hard question because it's one I spring on people all the time. So Lon, thank you so much for your time. Great conversation. I knew it would be. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you or inclusion or maybe Milan area schools? Where do they go?
Then go to our website, milenareaschools.org. And from there, be able to get information and get my contact information. I'm under the student services section there, and so they can reach out that way, or folks can email me. My email address is smithL@milenareaschools.org, and I'm happy to try to help anybody with this. I've been asked a few times about how to improve the inclusion and all of those different things. And so I'm more than happy to help folks navigate getting that started and what that can look like and, invite people in to come see what we're doing. Sometimes you gotta
See it.
see it, you gotta
Yeah.
get hands on it, if you will.
Yeah.
and see how it works. But nothing's perfect by any stretch, but we've been doing it a long time and we've seen a lot of success for our students.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for being open to that. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for coming on and telling your story and for everything that you guys do day in and day out for the students that cross your path. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.